Have you ever wondered why your home never looks really clean, even though you clean regularly? And when I tell you that you may make mistakes when cleaning that prevent exactly that, errors that almost everyone makes, and that actually make your home appear even more dirty. Imagine, you spend hours with dust wiping, soil, cleaning surface, and yet this feeling remains that something is wrong. No fresh fragrance, no real shine, just frustration and the feeling that your effort was for nothing. This is exactly where the problem lies. It is not your cleaning methods, but the small habits that you do not notice. In this video, I will tell you 5 frequent cleaning errors that unconsciously keep your apartment dirty and how you simply avoid it. Be sure to stay tuned until the end, because tip number 5 is by far the most common, and many do it every day without realizing it. The dirty rag effect. One of the biggest but most invisible mistakes in cleaning often begins with a very ordinary cleaning flap. Sounds harmless, isn't it? But this is exactly where the problem lies. Many people use the same rag for different surfaces, kitchen, bathroom, living room, without washing or changing it thoroughly in between. And what happens then? Instead of removing the dirt, you only distribute it in your apartment. Imagine you wipe the kitchen counter on which raw meat was just still raw, and then go into the bathroom with the same rag to clean the sink. Does it sound unappetizing? Is it too? Because your rag is no longer a cleaning helper, but a means of transport for bacteria, fat, and dirt particles. And that can not only be unsanitary, but even harmful to health. In practice, this means for every room, ideally even for every surface, you should have your own rag or a separate cleaning cloth. For example, use color-coded microfiber cloths, blue for the bathroom, yellow for the kitchen, green for dust in the living area. And very important, after each use, the towels should be washed immediately or at least flushed out and dried thoroughly. Otherwise, bacterial colonies will develop, which you distribute again with every swipe. What does that bring you? First, you effectively prevent germs from one area to another. Second, the surfaces stay clean for longer because you do not apply for dirt unconsciously. And thirdly, your apartment is really hygienically clean. And you don't just see that, you can smell that too. So if you only change one thing the next time you clean, start here. Take your own clean rag for each area. Your home will thank you, and you will immediately notice the difference. The fragrance trap trick. We all love this for a moment when the apartment smells fresh after cleaning, after lemon, lavender, or anything that gives us the feeling of cleanliness. But a dangerous error lurks here. Just because it smells good does not mean that it is really clean. And that is exactly the second big trap when cleaning, the so-called fragrance trap. When cleaning, many of them automatically grab heavily parfed cleaning agents or spray through the apartment again properly after cleaning. That gives a good feeling at short notice, but it can be wrong, because sometimes these fragrances only simulate the smell of cleanliness, while the surfaces are still full of dirt, bacteria, or fat films. An example from everyday life. You quickly clean over the kitchen worktop with an all-purpose cleaner that smells intensely for lemon. You breathe in deeply and think, clean. But what you don't see, the cleaner may not even remove the fat properly. Instead, a thin, shiny layer remains. And this is exactly where new particles and germs settle. What can you do? When cleaning, pay less attention to the fragrance and more on the effect. Read the labels of your cleaners exactly. What do they really remove? Are you fat, solving, disinfectant? And even more important, rinse the surfaces, especially in the kitchen and bathroom, after cleaning with clear water. This is how you prevent residues remain, whether fragrances or dirt. The advantage, you get real cleanliness instead of mere illusion. Your surfaces are not only visually pure, but also hygienic, and you avoid buying new cleaning agents just because you think it has to smell even cleaner. In short, don't be fooled by the fragrance. Pay attention to real cleaning instead of perfume. Your home will thank you, and you will feel more comfortable than ever before. Dust down, the underestimated error. One of the most stubborn mistakes that many make when cleaning looks totally logical at first glance. but is actually a classic cleaning error, cleaning from bottom to top. Yes, right. For example, if you first suck or swipe the floor and then dust off the shelves, windowsills, or lamps, then you have just destroyed your work yourself, because the dust always falls down. Imagine it as follows. You spend 30 minutes to suck the floor in the living room thoroughly. Everything looks perfect. Then you take the upper areas, wipe dust of shelves, television, or picture frames. And what happens? The dust you swirl up slowly sinks back towards the floor and lies directly on your freshly cleaned area. And that means double work or a dirty floor, even though you have just cleaned. In practice, this means always work from top to bottom. Start with the ceiling fan if you have one, then shelves, picture frames, windowsills. At the very end, the floor comes on, sucking or wiping as a crowning glory. So you make sure that the whole dirt that loosens when cleaning really disappears and does not simply land elsewhere. What does this change bring you? Clearly, more efficient cleaning. You save time because you don't have to clean the same area several times, and you get a much better result. No gray residues on freshly wiped soils. No "where does the dust come back" feeling. Your rooms immediately look more neat, and you can finally really look forward to your work. So, next time you clean, think in levels. Start at the top, work yourself systematically down, and you will be surprised how much cleaner your home suddenly works. And before we continue, if you have already learned something new or synced to you, that's right, I actually do that wrong, then the perfect moment is to subscribe to the channel. Here you can regularly get simple but effective tips on how to not only make your home clean, but really well groomed and comfortable, without stress, without scrubbing for hours. So now click on subscribe and also activate the bell so that you don't miss a new video anymore. And now it continues with a mistake that almost everyone overlooks, but that occurs in every household: the forgotten handle. Number 1, germ zone. There is an area in the house that we constantly touch, with dirty hands, with greasy fingers, sometimes even automatically without noticing it. And this area is often forgotten when cleaning: the handles. Door handles, drawer handles, refrigerator handles, light switch. All of these small contact areas are among the most dirty areas in the entire household and are still happy to be overlooked when cleaning. Why is that such a problem? Because most of the germs collect there. Think about it briefly. You come home, have just done your purchase, have touched the subway rod, the door handle from the house, and what is the first thing you touch inside? Right, the door handle. And if this is never cleaned, then she transmits everything further, to the next person, to the fridge, to the light switch, and so on. In practice, this means that these contact surfaces must be wiped off regularly, preferably with every cleaning passage. A simple microfiber cloth with a mild household cleaner is usually enough. In sensitive areas such as bath or kitchen, you can also use a disinfectant, especially if someone is or was sick. The refrigerator handle is a good example. Many people clean the interior regularly, wipe the shelves, check the drain hole, but the handle, it will be forgotten. He is touched umpteen times every day with hands that may have previously processed raw meat or sticky residues of jams. And this is how invisible dirt and bacterial sources are created that spread throughout the household unnoticed. If you avoid this error in the future, you will quickly notice how much more hygienic your home feels. Fewer pathogens, fewer lubrication films, and a large bonus: your surfaces remain clean for longer because the dirt is not distributed so easily. So, take a few minutes with every cleaning pass to go through all the handles and switches. They are small steps, but with great effect. The Smelly vacuum cleaner, dirt that comes back. Now comes the most shocking point in this whole video. And yes, most of us have already made this mistake without realizing it. It is about a device that you probably use regularly to make your home cleaner. But this can become the biggest dirt slingshot even. Your vacuum cleaner. You think you clean it thoroughly. You walk through all rooms with the vacuum cleaner, suck carpets, corners, upholstered furniture. and do not even notice that your device has long since become a source of dirt, bacteria, and above all, smells. Why? Because the vacuum cleaner bag is overfull, because the filters are blocked, or because the container has not been emptied for weeks. A particularly common mistake is to believe, oh, there is still something. And then the vacuum cleaner runs with a bag that has long been full, which means that it no longer has a real pull and at the same time blows fine dust, bacteria, and smells back into the air. It becomes particularly bad when the warm air develops in the inner bacteria. Then it suddenly smells musty when sucking, and that's not a good sign. What can you do? Quite simply, make the maintenance of your vacuum cleaner to a fixed part of your cleaning plan. If you use a bag, change it regularly, preferably before it is full. If you have a bagless vacuum cleaner, empty the container after each use. And don't forget the filters. Many models have interchangeable or washable filters. You should clean or replace them every few weeks, depending on the model. The effect? Incredible. You will notice how much more efficiently your vacuum cleaner suddenly works. It absorbs more dirt, your air remains cleaner, and finally there is no unpleasant smell when sucking. The best thing. You need less time for the same area because the vacuum cleaner brings full performance again. Conclusion. Your vacuum cleaner should clean. Do not make dirty. If you avoid this one mistake, you will experience completely new results when cleaning. Wipe too early. The wet mistake. Imagine you just suck the ground and think, perfect, now quickly wipe over it and you're done. So you get the mop, the bucket with a cleaning agent and start, full of motivation. But what many overlook, if you wipe the floor damp immediately after sucking without removing the last dust particles or lint beforehand, the opposite of what you hope for happens. Then what happens? The moist mop glues the still existing fine dust and distributes it into a fine, almost invisible layer all over the ground. The result? Streaks, matte areas, residues, and a floor that somehow doesn't look really clean, even though you have just worked on it. A classic error that is particularly visible in smooth floors such as laminate, tiles, or parquet. Especially in daylight, you can see the stripes and dust traces, and annoyed twice. Because you not only had more work, you also achieved less cleanliness. What is the solution? Give the vacuuming a few minutes more. Use a dry microfiber cloth or a dust towel after suction to pick up the last loose particles, especially on edges, under furniture, or with carpet edges, and only then wipe damp. Another extra tip. Make sure that the wiping water remains clean. Better change the water once more than too little, because the streak formation also prevents streak formation. And the mop itself? It also has to be cleaned regularly. A dirty mop doesn't do anything. On the contrary, it only pulls the dirt back and forth. What do you get from it? A visibly clean, strip-free floor that shines and feels good without double work. And you can be sure that the effort you give yourself is really worth it. So, take the 2 minutes more time before wiping. Your floor will thank you. The overloaded area, chaos despite order. You have probably already had the feeling that a room somehow fully untidy or even dirty, although everything is actually clean. No dust on the furniture, the floor freshly wiped, the windows clear. And yet, it doesn't look neat. Why? The answer is in a small but crucial mistake. Namely, too many things on the surfaces. Full kitchen worktops, overloaded shelves, bedside tables with everything possible. All of this visually creates unrest. And the worst thing about it, these areas are much more difficult to clean. Each object must be raised, shifted, or wiped, and in reality, a lot is simply cleaned around it. That means dust, crumbs, and fat collect exactly where they interfere, between things. A typical example is the kitchen. You have your kettles, toaster, spice stand, fruit basket, coffee machine, maybe a few decorative items. And suddenly there is hardly any room to work, let alone to clean. When cleaning you at most, you can just lift a little high, wipe it under fleeting, and that's it. The edges, the gaps, what you don't see immediately, remains. What can you do? Quite simply, reduce. Less is really more here. Just leave what you need every day. Everything else gets its place in the closet, in the drawer, or in boxing. So you not only have an overview, you can also clean the surface with a swipe, without having to clear everything up every time. The result? Your rooms immediately look neat, clearer and cleaner, even if you didn't have time to clean thoroughly. The areas collect less dust, you save time and have significantly less stress when cleaning. And honestly, who doesn't love the feeling of free, tidy surfaces? So check your areas today. Where is too much? What could you clear away? A little beginning makes a big difference. Always the same process, cleanliness in the comfort zone. Many people develop a firm cleaning routine over time, and that is something good in principle. Structure helps to keep an overview. But this is precisely one of the most common traps when cleaning. You always do the same, in exactly the same order, in the same places, and systematically overlook zones that have long since urgently needed attention. This mistake is so treacherous because it snows up gradually. For example, you clean the kitchen every Saturday. Always work surface, stove, floor. But when was the last time you looked behind the fridge, or on the top of the wall cabinet, or the cutlery compartment completely cleared and white? The comfort zone ensures that you feel efficient, but often it is only a well-oiled habit that creates blind spots. Spaces such as the guest toilet, the area under the bed, window frame, or socket strips often remain untouched for months because they do not appear on your usual cleaning radar. And that's exactly where there is quiet and secret, the dirt. What can you do specifically? Make a flexible cleaning plan that regularly includes certain special areas. Perhaps you take another extra every week. For example, in week 1, dust off the lamps. In week 2, wipe through all drawers in the kitchen. Small steps, great effect. Another tip, write down all the rooms and write down which corners or details you like to forget in everyday life. Then you can take countermeasures, and you will see. As soon as you consciously break the routine, your cleaning result not only gets better, you also get a completely new feeling for your home. The best thing about it? You don't do any additional work, you just distribute it to wiser. And this makes your home look permanently maintained, not only superficial, but down to the depths. So, get out of the comfort zone. Your apartment deserves more than an automatic standard program. Forget the window, the loss of light. One of the most powerful means to make a home fresh, open, and clean is very simple. Light. Natural light makes rooms friendlier, larger, and cleaner. But this is exactly where one of the most common cleaning errors happens. The windows are neglected, and not only outside, but also inside. It sounds harmless, but smeared, dusty, or greasy window panes take more than you think. Even if the floor shines and the surfaces are free, when the light falls through a gray bridge, the whole room seems stamped, dull, and somehow neglected. And the worst, you get used to it. At some point, you don't even notice the dirt until you really clean the windows, and suddenly everything is like new. A classic example. In the kitchen, a fine fat film sets off on the slices over time, especially when cooking is often done. This film not only holds dust, but also smeared when wiping if you don't do it properly. Or, children's hands leave traces in the form of small finger taps, especially in the living room. You can only see them in the right light, but they are there. What can you do? Plan the window cleaning regularly, at least every 2 to 3 months. And not only the glass counts, the frames, windowsills, and corners should also be cleaned. Dead insects, cobwebs, or even mold often collect there. Do not use aggressive cleaners. A mixture of warm water, a splash of washing, up remedies, and a little vinegar is often sufficient. And take a clean microfiber cloth or a puller to avoid stripes. The result? Your rooms shine in new light. In the truest sense, clean windows let the daylight come in freely, the colors in the room look clearer, and your entire home immediately feels fresher and lively. So, if you want your home to really shine, start with what the light leaves in. Without a plan into chaos. cleaning without structure. The last and perhaps most consequent plaster sin, haphazard cleaning. Many people start the cleaning day motivated, snap the bucket and cloth and just get started. Here a bit there. And in the end, if you have been exhausted, felt like it was busy for hours, but the result is somehow unsatisfactory. This feeling remains that you don't really finish. Why is that? Quite simply, without a clear plan, cleaning becomes an endless spiral. You jump from room to space, forget things, do twice, or overlook half. And that not only leads to frustration, but also takes a lot of time and energy. A typical example. You start in the bathroom, but before you are finished, you remember that you wanted to make the windows in the living room. Then someone calls, you interrupt, and when you are back, you don't even know where you had stopped. Result: the bathroom remains half-made, the living room looks like before, and you are sweaty but not satisfied. The solution is as simple as it is effective. Create a rough plaster plan beforehand. This does not have to be a complicated budget calendar. A small note is enough. Write down, what rooms do you want to do today? In what order? What tasks are to be done there? And stick to it. Stay with a room until it is finished, and then only on. If you clean regularly, you can even create a weekly rhythm. Monday kitchen, Wednesday bathroom, Saturday floors and windows. So everything stays in the flow without having to plan every time. And you notice, with structure, cleaning will not only be more effective, but also easier. You have the feeling that you really have finished something, and that motivates it. The biggest advantage? You save time. And at the same time, you can reach a cleaner, more careful home, without chaos, without overwhelming, because cleaning does not have to be an eternal struggle. With the right plan, it becomes a liberating ritual. Now you know. Even if you clean regularly, your home can be dirtier than you think if you make these typical mistakes. Perhaps you have not been aware of you yet. Maybe you have done some of them automatically for years. But that's exactly what this video was about. Creating awareness for what you can change without investing more time or money. We saw today how important clean cleaning flaps are. Why fragrance alone is not a sign of cleanliness. Why you should work from top to bottom should not be forgotten, and how your vacuum cleaner secretly becomes a dirt. We talked about overloaded areas or routine traps, neglected windows, and finally the difference between haphazard and structured cleaning. And now the most important thing comes. You don't have to change everything at once. Start with one point, maybe the one you fell into the eye. As soon as you remove this one mistake, you will see how much cleaner, fresher, and more harmonious your home works. And this sense of achievement, it motivates to continue. Cleaning can be frustrating, yes, but it can also be liberating, strengthening, even meditative if you know what you do. And that is exactly why this channel is available, so that you no longer have to fight, but finally feel comfortable in a home that is really clean and feels like this. If this video helped you, let me know. Write in the comments which the mistake you have already made, or which change made the biggest difference for you. And if you don't want to miss any other tips, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because the next videos bring you even more simple but effective strategies for your clean, organized home. So, which of these 5 mistakes will you still fix today?